Welcome to the third video in our Express Repair series. In the previous videos, we did all of our prep work, and we also did our body work to repair the actual damaged area. In this third video, we're going to look at priming. So our panel's already prepped, so all that's left to do is mask around this area. We're going to do our final sand with finer paper so we can prime, apply our primer, and then cure our primer. As always, this video is intended for professional use only, so for those of you out there in the body shops doing the work. And we also want to make sure we're using proper PPE. In this video, since I'm going to be applying primer, I'm going to be using a half-mask respirator, I'm going to have on my paint suit, and I'm also going to be using nitrile gloves and safety glasses. If you have any questions or want any more information around the safety side, please be sure to check out the description below. In the previous video, we sanded down our repair area, feathered everything out, applied and cured our body filler, and we blocked everything nice and smooth using guide coat to be sure we didn't leave any sand scratches behind. Since we did our final DA for the repair area, we're now ready to DA for the primer section. So for that, we're gonna step to a little bit finer paper. For the paint line we're using, we're going to go all the way up to around 500 grit sandpaper, but be sure to follow your paint company's recommendations for whatever paint line you're using. After we sand everything out, we're going to give it one more final clean, and then we're ready to apply our masking for a primer application. Now that we have our repair area fully sanded down and ready for our primer application with our finer grit sandpaper, the next step is to give it one last wipe down before we mask it and actually apply our primer. Since we have body filler on our panel now, we no longer want to use our wax and grease remover to soak the whole panel because body filler is porous and it can absorb some of that wax and grease remover and hold on to it. And once we primer over the top, that solvent that's in there could come out later on and cause a contamination issue with the paint. So what we're going to want to do is we'll spray one rag with our wax and grease remover. We're going to wipe our repair area and immediately follow that with a dry rag to dry it all back off. Anytime I'm using wax and grease remover, I'm going to have my respirator and my safety glasses as well as my nitrile gloves on. Now that we have our area final cleaned off, we're ready to go ahead and apply our masking for primer. Now when we're masking for primer, it's crucial not to leave a hard edge. So we're going to use a back taping technique with our paper that'll give us a little bit softer of an edge. We also want to keep it fairly tight around the repair area because we want to be able to keep our base coat within the panel so we don't have to blend into the adjacent ones. So our back taping method is to put the paper on upside down, and I'm going to go a little bit below this body line to give me some room. And then we press the tape down and we just let the paper fall. And then with our tape, we're going to push this up a little bit to give us a nice rolled edge. Now that we have that nice soft edge, we're going to do the same thing on each side and then finish masking off so we don't get any overspray from our primer onto the rest of our panel. So now that we're all masked up, we're ready to apply our primer. So we have our direct metal primer surfacer all mixed up here in our gun in our 3-ounce cup. And the reason I'm able to use the 3-ounce cup is because I'm gonna apply my primer properly by having the right gun set up. So a common mistake I see in a shop is we're priming a small area so they turn the pressure way down to minimize overspray, but what ends up happening is we're applying way too much primer, way too heavy. So what we want to do is make sure our gun, the performance spray gun in particular, is dialed into 20 psi on the inlet side, and then I'm going to adjust my pattern to get it the size I want that's appropriate for spraying this area. I don't want to decrease my pressure. I want to get everything set, do one final check of my pressure because as we change pattern size, that can fluctuate. So once I get my size dialed in, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my pressure to be right back at 20 psi. And I also have a 1.6 tip in. Now most tech sheets will say you can go from a 1.6 all the way up to a 2.0. The finer tip we use, the better atomization we get, which means the less sanding we have to do later. At our higher pressure, it's gonna lay out really, really nice. Our panel is fully taped off, so we don't have to worry about overspray. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook up my air, throw my respirator on, I'm gonna dial my pattern in on the paper, and then I'm gonna start applying. My first coat is gonna be nice and light, and it's gonna go edge to edge. Each coat after that will be a little bit heavier than the first coat, and I'll slowly step my primer in and in until I finish just on the repair area. So I have my first medium light coat applied. That's going to guarantee my adhesion. On my spray gun, I ended up only going out about 3/4 of a turn. That gave me the pattern size that I was looking for. And then I dialed in my fluid tip until I was getting about the right amount of primer coming out, and then did one final check of my pressure and set it back to 20. So now that the first coat is applied, we're gonna let that flash off, and each coat we're gonna step in a little bit more. Just like in the body filler video, if you watch that one, we're gonna accelerate the curing process with a shortwave infrared curing lamp. So now our primer is fully cured. The next step is to unmask this and we can start blocking it out. So I'm going to go ahead and get this paper off. So as you can see, by using our soft edge masking, we don't have any really hard edges, only where the very faint spots of our overspray are, which will sand off really quick. This feels pretty smooth, so I'll probably start with 320. And to make sure, just like body filler, we're going to go ahead and use guide coat at each step. So now the next step is to go ahead and start blocking that out. You always want to use the largest block you can without extending too far past the repair area, because we don't want to go too far with our base coat. So we have two different blocks we're going to use. I'm going to start with our larger block to go ahead and sand all the way across to verify everything's nice and straight and see how it looks. So everything blocked out really nice. So now we're ready to move to the next step, which is our final feather with the DA. To get out our 320 grit scratches, we're going to finish all the way to 600 grit paper. Again, that's for our recommendations from the paint line that we're using. So be sure to check your tech sheets for the line you're using and finish with the correct paper. Just like before blocking, I'm going to cover everything with guide coat. Again, here at 3M, we always recommend using a dry guide coat. By wiping this on there, we're forcing it into any of those inline scratches. So now when I shift to the DA, I can sand until all those are gone, and I know I've gone far enough. So I'm gonna sand lightly back and forth with the DA until those inline scratches are gone, and then make sure I have a nice smooth transition to my factory paint. So now that we've done our final sanding with our DA and our finer grit paper, everything is nice and smooth and straight. We verified with guide coat that there's no straight line scratches left. So all that's left to do is wipe this down before we head into the booth. So that finishes our third video in the Express Repair series. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you hit that like or comment below. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe or check out 3M Collision Repair Academy.